Welcome to another Leading Digital podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Mark Hessinger. He's currently working as an independent consultant, but he has a past which is all about customer experience and service management. He's worked globally for a number of leading organizations, including Gerber, and he's worked in Asia, Europe, and now currently in the US. He has a passion for AI and actually the implementation of AI, and is currently supporting an AI startup. So, Mark, can you give me a quick overview of your kind of career to date and your journey in field service?
Yes, thanks. So I started when I studied electrical engineering in college. And after that, I got out. I had first job was working with a company that was in defense and supporting submarine systems. And didn't take me long to figure out that wasn't for me. But what I was passionate about in my studies was integrated circuit design. So I looked for a company in California and I found one and I moved out there and started working in that industry. With that, I had the good opportunity to move to Europe, help them grow the European base. And I was an applications and support engineer. And then the time came that they said, hey, I was in Germany, and they said, we're trying to set up a new support site in France. And would you want to lead that and set it up? So that was my shift into a management role and setting up a support site. And that was more phone support for software support and application support. And then I transitioned to Gerber, which has a number of different business units. And I started in one, and that was also in Europe. And over time, got involved with other business units, and eventually moved back to the U.S. because they wanted to create a global service structure, and asked me if I would lead that. So I took the opportunity, and then integrated the different service businesses from the different Gerber entities and made one large shared services that could really take care of our customers. After that, I was in a niche logistics company. We're working on the other side in services. Getting to understand that was also interesting, where we did 2-hour deliveries of parts for companies like Cisco.
Wow.
In Japan, 90 minutes anywhere's in Japan to get a spare part. So that was a interesting experience, fun experience. And then I moved into 3D systems, 3D printing in healthcare and industrial applications. And I went there because I figured the technology was really cool. It'd be nice to work in that with that technology. And it wouldn't matter what company I found, they probably were not advanced in service, because that's kind of your path when you start a company. You work on the product, eventually you get to services. And so I had a good opportunity there to take what they had and really transform it and make it something that was really good for the industry.
So you had an awful lot of experience in terms of that international thing. How did you find bringing into the different business units when you were creating a single service center? That must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, I think it's been important. I've done a lot of visits to customers and colleagues in different countries, different cultures, and learning that and how to communicate and say we're going to change things. When you centralize things or combine things, there's always concern, and people, that's not how we did it. And so you need to build good relationships and create a vision that people understand why you're going somewhere and bring them on board.
So in your career, have there been any sort of good leaders that you've looked to or anything that you've learned from others?
There's been a number of good leaders along the way throughout the career. There's some that are better, some that are weaker, but you learn from every one. But one of the biggest learning moments was not from a leader or a mentor, it was from someone who reported to me. That was when I was working in Germany. He came up to me and he said, Mark, in German, we have this word, it's called Geschäftsführer, which if you translate, it's business leadership. And that's what we need. Everybody knows you know the product better than anyone, but we need you as a leader. And that's kind of where it clicked. And from that individual contributor where you're really got a lot of product knowledge to say, yes, I really need to make that change. And that helped me really shift into a leadership role, not just a manager role.
Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? It's sort of, you can always learn from anyone, can't you? And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the people above you.
And it also shows it's important to build open, trusting relationships, because in a lot of hierarchical situations, someone that works for you would not feel comfortable telling you, hey, you got to change, right?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate when people do that.
And I think sort of culturally it's different as well, isn't it? I think if you've had experience in Japan, the kind of the hierarchical thing's quite hard to break away from.
Yes, they'll let you feel like you're doing things right if they're in the hierarchy below you, even if you're not. So you need to be able to read the signs in the body language.
So moving on to sort of innovation and going forward, is there an emerging technology? There's so many that people are talking about in field service. Is there any one that you think is going to be really important going forward?
Well, today everybody, you get inundated with messages and things about AI this, AI that. And it's not just you got to use AI, but AI is a technology that helps you really move things forward at a faster rate. So if you want to transform what you're doing, AI has been around a long time, but now it's really taken off in the last few years because of the computing power and because of the focus of companies in it. But I think AI is a technology that can be leveraged in a lot of different places in the aftermarket service arena.
So I think when we were talking earlier, you talked about a sort of startup that you're working with in the AI space. Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, currently I'm doing some business consulting for a couple of companies, and one of them's a software startup, circuitry.ai, and they're looking to have a comprehensive aftermarket solution for, to help field service people, to help tech support people, help manage warranty by applying a lot of its Gen AI now into different areas and connecting dots. And you'll see there's a lot of companies that the knowledge is separate, it's not connected. It's still surprising how many don't have a robust CRM or FSM system. So that the technology now can pull all that together and put forward the right information to the field or tech support to help you work faster and get to the solution.
So within that, are there any sort of challenges with AI?
Like I first implemented AI for tech support. That was probably 6 years ago, and it's understanding what you're trying to achieve. Change management when you put any technology in is very important. With AI, what I found the first time I put it in was people thought they had different assumptions. Some didn't want it, some thought it was going to do everything, right? It does certain things really good. And when the AI made a mistake, people were like, oh, see, it doesn't work. So we had to back up and say, okay, how good is our tech support? What's our first call resolution? Right? It could be 85, 90, depending on where you are in your organization. Okay, if AI can be the same or a few points better, does that help? And then they'll, oh yeah, that would help, right? So if it's treated as a companion that's going to perform similar success rate or better, then it's like a team player you brought on and it's gotten up to speed a lot quicker than just bringing somebody in through the normal channel.
So it's definitely different. But in terms of technology that you've put in the past, has there anything that you've put in that hasn't worked that you've learned from those mistakes?
Hasn't worked is always a right. Hasn't worked to expectations. Yes.
Yes, that's probably
So, for example, augmented reality, using that to remote troubleshoot and guide and training. That a couple things you could say went sideways and we had to correct. First, the team that was putting in the technology for their proof of concept, they picked a service procedure that's almost never used. So when people were looking at it, it's like, why are we using it for this? That's not what we need it for, right? So it's connecting the dots, and then people were more comfortable using FaceTime or something on their phone than going to an app on their phone to use something similar. The reason you want to use an AR tool is because you want to use certain knowledge, you want to push information, you want to capture information, you want to get it all in your ecosystem. So we had a lot of adaptation, I'd say, challenges getting that technology started. And fortunately, we started before the pandemic. So then when the pandemic came, it was like, oh, yeah, maybe we should start trying to use this. And it helped us definitely with customers that we couldn't travel to for certain reasons. We could work with the customer and guide them through and do some repairs. So that helps, getting some wins to be able to share with the team that this is how we want to use it.
so. People often say that service or field service engineers are the hardest to change, and they have the greatest amount of resistance. Do you think that's fair?
I don't know if the hardest to change, but so what do they want to do? A field service engineer typically wants to go fix a problem, right? So if I'm putting more technology in and they don't see benefit and it's just going to take more time, it's like, I don't need this. What surprised me when I rolled out a field service management software in ServiceMax, and we provided everybody with an iPad because we wanted to use the app and we wanted them to capture digital signature. And it was surprising how many people just wanted to stay on their laptops and use the browser. And then they were complaining there was too many things on the screen where the app was designed to make it more streamlined, right? So the important thing there was to find some champions in the field service team that could speak to their colleagues and say, hey, I'm doing this and I found this works and this, right? That they're not getting it from above, they're getting it from the side that says, let's try this. It's if they don't see the benefit for them in doing their particular task, it's tough to get them to say, okay, I'll try something new.
Moving away from the service engineer into sort of customer experience, do you think there's much change in terms of customer expectations or anything that's been evolving in the sector in the time that you've been working in it?
I'd say one of the biggest changes, customer expectation. You used to be able to go sell a service contract and it was like, what's your response time going to be? You know, I can be there. You want a 24-hour, you want 48, you want same day. What's the service level? A lot of the advanced customers, that's not the conversation anymore. They expect, I want an asset uptime of X. I don't care how you do it, but that's what you need to deliver, right? That's what I built my business case on. So that's what needs to run. So you need to be talking that language and designing your service offering to support that, and then have that conversation and drive your organization to support the uptime metrics.
That's interesting. I heard an example of Boeing, I think, was they now buy engines on uptime. They don't actually buy an engine anymore. They buy power. It's sort of, it's kind of a weird concept, really. And they don't care what happens as long as it's up.
Yeah, companies like that and the suppliers, Rolls Royce or GE, of giving the engines to the airplane industry, it's power by the hour, and they're selling an outcome based service, which some models are open to that. Some industries are, the thought process isn't there, or it doesn't make sense. But yes, that's one of the, I'd say, the more advanced service offering, to say you're going to have this much power coming out of this engine over this lifetime.
And how does that translate in terms of field service and expectations on field service? Because a lot of field service systems are geared up towards SLAs, which are totally linked to, delivery, expectation times within 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever.
I it's what needs to be done in field service is not so much trying to say, okay, I'm going to design the fastest response time. It's how do I work with engineering to design the best maintenance program so I don't have emergency calls. If we can continue to make progress there, that drives a much better customer experience. It meets the goal of the uptime. It actually puts less stress on the employee because it's more of a planned schedule than okay, go there, go there, go there. I've managed organizations where we were not that advanced and we needed to jump around to customers, and that really stresses your employees. So you got to start making those pivots to, we're going to do good maintenance at the right point, the right things, and through that try to maximize uptime.
So, in terms of employees now, do we have a challenge in terms of developing talent within the industry? Because it's sort of, we're quite often expecting people to do different things than they used to do, or as time has moved on.
I think part of the challenge is that technology is getting more complicated. Some companies have a broader product portfolio. Engineers like to feel comfortable when they go in to work on a problem that they will be able to solve it. So just throwing them in cold is not recommended, and it doesn't good for the customer or for the employee or for the business. So the education programs are important, and communication is important because your field engineers are out there in the field and they don't know what's going on really in the main office, and a lot of times it's not that important to them. They just want to make sure that they're in a company that's doing well and is going to be there for them. But it's making sure you have communication. We set up chat groups amongst the global field engineers, and it was interesting to see when that got adopted. that they were communicating and supporting each other around the globe. Somebody in Australia had an issue, and somebody in Mexico had a
Oh, wow.
to try, right? And you see all this, and they start building broader relationships, and they don't feel alone out there in the field. So it's not just getting them the official tech support route, but leveraging the organization to share and exchange knowledge.
It's interesting that because you're using, with AI, people can become more independent almost. And then that becomes much harder to create that kind of field service culture that you're trying to do because it's easier for someone to press a 52 into the machine and then out comes, oh, it's this, this, and this. Whereas actually that whole thing about getting information from other people within your organization is creating that culture, isn't it? It
Right.
must be a challenge.
So you can use AI individually as a bot, just talking to a field engineer or to a customer. But I think one of the good applications also of AI is embedding it in those channels where people are communicating, right? So it's another team player communicating. So they're talking about an error number, and the AI can bring up, okay, last time we had this error, this is the procedure we followed, or it's documented here, right? Just a reminder, right? So you can, if you engage your AI like a team player in those channels, I think it helps the whole organization instead of just saying we're going to slice it and that's going to be done by AI and that's going to be done by traditional service. I don't think that's the way to go. It's finding how you merge and blend the technology together.
That's interesting because I think a lot of people are implementing AI as a sort of almost a Google search engine for information about whatever the fault happens to be, which creates more insular behavior, I think. So, in terms of measuring success, I guess life, we're always measuring different things. I mean, I seem to remember in the past it was always like how many jobs per day were done and all of this, and it was all the sort of very, very operational metrics. Do you think that's changed much in field service?
I think it has, not in every company. I think there's still a lot of people that look at those types of metrics that you mentioned. For me, one, getting back to the asset uptime is an important metric. The customer satisfaction and loyalty is an important metric, and employee engagement is an important metric. And then when we get into the field service organization, it's starting to look at, okay, how much time are they spending actually doing work at customers? That's what we have them for. That's what we want them to. Then if I look at that, then how do I take that other time and optimize it? Meaning reduce the admin tasks, and there you can use AI to reduce the admin tasks, right? To reduce the travel by doing better planning and dispatching, right? You want to maximize the amount of time that they're spending at customers and not doing administration work or traveling. And as that grows, then you're looking at, okay, now they're at the customer, what's their first time fix rate? And how do I improve that? If you can track across different types of activities in the field, you could see who's taking more time, who's taking less time. And back to those original metrics you mentioned, if I'm just measuring how many you do in a day, I may not see the guy that takes more time, maybe 20% more, has a much better first time fix rate, and we're not going back to the customer. He's doing something extra, right? So how do I capture that and put it back in? So those are the things that I think the leadership needs to be looking at to say, okay, how do we keep getting better each day as we progress with the field service operation?
This has been really interesting. I think what I'd be really interested to know is what do you think the industry will look like in 5 years' time?
I think if you look how quickly the tools are advancing, it's going to, I always looked at the organization saying, I want to maximize customer touches and minimize back office touches. So I think the technology will help accelerate that. I think the technology, when you're using things like AI for small startups, right, that struggle with scaling service because it's tough to add people, you can add infinite into your AI support, right? And you need a few experts, but you can leverage that so you'll be able to see successful startups grow faster. And then there is the other extreme as far as people don't like say AI is going to replace us, but I think there's one level of if you go to a server farm that's out somewhere, there's going to be a drone flying the part out there. Maybe it drops off a mini robot that goes in and does the work because it's all straightforward and you got to take this out, put that in. So I think there will be continued ways to eliminate certain of the repetitive tasks, and that allows us to use our people resources on the more complicated and difficult and building the customer relationship. So I think there's going to be a whole spectrum of changes, and those companies that are embracing the technology and learning how to deploy it and create value are going to be leaders.
That's interesting. So what's next for you personally, Mark, in the next 24 months?
Right now, currently, as I mentioned earlier, I'm doing some consulting for two companies in the software area for aftermarket services. One I mentioned, circuitry.ai, the other is True Context, and helping them from a service leader perspective look at their product offering and their roadmaps and how they're acquiring customers to adopt that technology. So I enjoy doing that, but I'd like to find one or two companies I can help again do the same thing I've done in the past. Transform the services business to really be something that's a differentiator for their business.
I'm sure you'll be very good at that. I think that would be just listening to your knowledge so far. Finally, Mark, if you had a magic wand and you could solve one challenge in the service industry, what would it be?
That's an interesting question, and yeah, you could say, okay, I got a magic wand, I can wave it, and everybody has all this technology in that. But I wouldn't go that way because that would kind of not be fair to the ones that are really investing and trying to learn how to use it and apply it. So what I would do with the wand, and we learned from all these fairy tales, you got to be careful with your wands. But I would say let's eliminate any connectivity problem so that every field engineer in the world is always connected, can always download as fast as they need, and don't, that's where the frustration comes in. They can't get their job done just because they're in a dark spot or they can't see, get a reception. So that's what I would do. That would help everybody in the globe at an equal level, and then you can build upon that.
Interesting. Excellent. That was really useful. That was really good. So, oh wow, you've got a lot of experience there that I think will be very beneficial to people. So, well, that was very insightful. Mark has a wealth of knowledge. If you'd like to hear any of our other podcasts, please join us at Digital. Alternatively, if you've got any other challenges in your business around field service, don't hesitate to contact us.